Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're getting right into something pretty critical. It sits right at the center of almost every major cyber breach you read about. Get this. A massive 80% of all cyber attacks. They involve compromised, privileged credentials.
Yeah, 80%. That's not just some small risk. That's 4 out of every 5 intrusions.
Exactly. It's a huge number.
It really highlights the stakes, doesn't it? I mean, even
Yeah.
organizations with pretty solid security sometimes miss just how vital these high-level access points are, which of course makes them prime targets.
Right. And that's exactly why we're doing a deep dive today into privileged access management. You'll hear it called PAM. It's really more than just, a tool or a piece of software. It's a whole strategy, really, for securing our digital world against these kinds of threats.
Yeah, it's foundational.
So our mission here is simple. Get you up to speed on PAM. We want to give you a really solid understanding, cut through the jargon, and get straight to the important stuff fast.
Absolutely. Whether you're, say, prepping for a meeting, or maybe you just need to catch up on this area of cybersecurity, or, maybe you're just curious about what keeps our digital lives protected. Understanding PAM is, well, it's essential.
Okay, so let's dig in. Why are these privileged credentials such a hot target for attackers?
Well, think about it like having master keys, not just for one room, but like for the entire building or even multiple buildings.
Right.
Attackers know these keys exist. They go straight for them because it's the quickest route to getting control, accessing sensitive data, you name it. It's high-level critical access.
And stopping these kinds of attacks, it has real business value, doesn't it?
Oh, huge value. You're talking about reducing the massive financial hits from breaches, protecting the company's reputation, which can be really hard to rebuild, and of course, avoiding those big regulatory fines.
Okay, now here's something that I found pretty surprising at the scope. When you hear privileged account, you probably think, I don't know, IT admin, right? Logging into a server.
That's the common image, yeah.
But it's actually much, much broader. These accounts are literally everywhere, in every single layer of IT.
That's the key point. Operating systems, cloud platforms, applications, databases, even down to IoT devices, your smart whatever.
Yeah.
They all have accounts with privileges.
Wow, okay, so they're really embedded everywhere.
They are. And that raises a good challenge, right? If they're everywhere, how do you even find them all, let alone secure them?
So PM helps with that, finding the hidden ones.
Exactly. It provides the tools and the process to discover these accounts, often ones people didn't even know existed, and bring them under management. It shrinks the attack surface.
And you mentioned hidden risks. What about things like service accounts? I hear those are a big problem.
They really are. Service accounts are used by applications or systems to talk to each other. They're not tied to a human user.
Okay.
The danger is their passwords, their credentials often don't change. They're static. And worse, they frequently have way more permissions than they actually need.
So static password, too much power, bad combo.
The worst combo. For an attacker, compromising one of these is like hitting the jackpot. They can use those excessive privileges to move sideways through the network. That's what we call lateral movement.
Spreading the damage.
Precisely.
Yeah.
PM tackles this by enforcing controls, like rotating those static credentials automatically and ensuring they only have the minimum privileges needed.
Now, some people might hear this and think, okay, PAM, it's just a fancy password vault, right?
Yeah, that's a common misconception. But it's really so much more than just storing passwords securely.
So what else does it do?
Well, think about features like session monitoring, actually watching what happens during a privileged session, or just-in-time access, JIT, where privileges are granted only for a specific task and for a limited time.
Okay, so temporary access.
Exactly. And even things like behavioral analytics, looking for unusual activity that might indicate a compromised account, is much more sophisticated.
And these extra features, they're not just about security, are they? You mentioned efficiency, too.
Absolutely. Take automated credential rotation. Manually changing complex passwords across hundreds or thousands of systems is a huge error-prone job.
I can imagine.
Automating that frees up IT teams for other critical tasks. So yeah, it boosts security and operational efficiency. Big time.
Now, here's another angle. It's not just humans needing privileged access anymore, right?
That's a really crucial point. We have all these machine identities now. Think APIs connecting services, bots running automated tasks, scripts managing infrastructure.
Or automation stuff.
Exactly. And these machine identities often have significant privileges too. They need to be managed and secured, just like human accounts, maybe even more carefully sometimes.
Why is that? What's the risk if a machine identity gets compromised?
Well, think about it. A compromised API key could lead to massive data exposure or service disruption. A malicious script running with high privileges could cause chaos.
Okay, so downtime, data loss.
Right. Securing these machine identities is vital for preventing that kind of abuse, ensuring your automation is reliable, and making sure your cloud services are integrated securely. It's about trusting the machines doing the work.
Let's pivot slightly. How does PAM fit into defending against major threats like, say, ransomware? That's on everyone's mind.
It's a huge piece of the defense, actually. Ransomware attackers love privileged accounts. Once they get an initial foothold, they often try to find and compromise an account with admin rights.
To spread further.
Exactly. To move laterally, deploy the ransomware widely, maybe even disable security tools. That privileged access is key to their whole attack chain.
So PAM stops that movement.
It restricts it significantly. By enforcing least privilege in monitoring sessions, PAM makes it much harder for attackers to escalate privileges and move around undetected. It contains the breach, limits the damage, and makes recovery faster.
That makes sense. And what about zero trust? That's another big concept in security right now. How does PAM connect there?
PAM is absolutely foundational to zero trust. The whole idea of zero trust is never trust, always verify.
Right, verify everything.
So you need strict verification for every access attempt. PAM is what enforces that for privilege access. It uses things like least privilege, only the exact access needed, no more, and requires strong authentication, like MFA, for those critical accounts.
So it's the enforcement engine for zero trust principles, specifically for the high-risk accounts.
Precisely. It limits unnecessary access, which reduces the risk from both outside attackers and potential insider threats. It makes zero trust practical for your most sensitive assets.
And things have changed, haven't they? PAM isn't just for old-school on-premise servers anymore. What about the cloud and DevOps?
Yeah, that's a critical evolution.
Mm.
Traditional PAM was very focused on data centers, servers and
Yeah.
racks. But today, everything's moving towards dynamic cloud environments, DevOps pipelines, CI/CD. It's much faster, much more ephemeral.
So PAM had to adapt.
It had to. Modern PAM solutions are built to handle these environments, securing access in the cloud, managing secrets for containers, integrating with DevOps tools. It's vital.
Why vital? What does it enable?
It helps close security gaps that could appear in these fast-moving environments, and it actually improves agility because you can automate secure access management right within those DevOps workflows. Security becomes an enabler, not a bottleneck.
Okay. Now, you mentioned session monitoring earlier. That sounds powerful, but maybe a bit sensitive, recording what people do.
It is powerful, and yeah, it's a bit of a double-edged sword. On the one hand, recording privileged sessions gives you incredible oversight. You have an undeniable audit trail. If something goes wrong, you can see exactly what happened.
Like a security camera for critical actions.
Exactly. But you're right, it has to be managed carefully to respect privacy. The focus should be on auditing the privileged actions taken, providing that security backstop, not necessarily, indiscriminately monitoring every single thing someone types. There's a balance.
Got it. Okay, let's talk compliance and detection. How does PAM help with all those regulations? GDPR, IGPA, PCI?
Oh, massively. Almost all major compliance frameworks, GDPR, IPA, PCI DSS, NIST, you name it, have strict requirements around controlling and auditing privileged access.
Makes sense. It's high risk.
It is. So implementing a solid PAM solution is essential for meeting those requirements. It helps avoid hefty fines, reduces legal headaches, and honestly, it builds trust. It shows you're taking security seriously.
But even with PAM, is it still hard to detect when someone misuses these privileges?
It can be incredibly tricky, actually. That's one of the core problems PAM addresses.
How so?
Because if an attacker compromises a legitimate admin account, their actions might look perfectly normal on the surface. They look like an admin doing admin things.
Hiding in plain sight.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Without the specific monitoring and analytics that PAM provides, looking for deviations, enforcing least privilege, maybe flagging unusual session activity, that malicious behavior can fly under the radar for a long time.
So PAM is key for actually seeing that abuse happening.
Yes. It provides that crucial visibility. It helps security teams spot and stop incidents much faster, often before major damage occurs. It reduces their workload by automating a lot of the monitoring and just generally improves threat detection for these high-impact scenarios.
So wrapping this up, we've covered a lot of ground. We went from PAM as just a concept to seeing it as this really multifaceted, essential part of security.
Yeah, definitely moved beyond just thinking of it as a password vault.
Right. We talked about its reach, covering everything from OS to IoT, even machine identities, its role in fighting ransomware, how it underpins zero trust.
How it's adapted for cloud and DevOps, the compliance benefits, and that crucial piece about detection. It really does touch almost every aspect of modern security.
It feels like understanding it really transforms how you might think about protecting an organization.
I think it does. It shifts the focus to controlling the most powerful access points.
So as we finish, here's something to think about. We know these privilege accounts are everywhere, right? Every IT layer, operating systems, cloud, IoT applications,
Hmm.
everywhere.
So the question for you is, what hidden privileged accounts might be lurking, maybe unmanaged, in your own digital world, whether at work or even personally? And if you started thinking about identifying and securing those, how might that change your whole approach to security?
That's a great question to ponder. Where are your keys to the kingdom?